So it's obvious that impact development is very important to all of you. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the importance of this type of development, how we can encourage more of it, or how it can be incentivized, and how do you measure the impact or the development you're doing, or the development you're doing and the impacts it has on the surrounding areas?
So one of the things that we were able to put together from all of this stuff takes some creativity. You can't get low income housing tax credits in Kentucky in this area that we're in. You don't qualify for them based off how Kentucky does their scoring. So we had to be really creative. So the capital stack is a combination of some ARPA funds that we were able to get awarded from the city. And then we were able to put a TIF on the tax increment financing district on the $100 million of market rate development that we have ongoing in order to help provide some subsidy for the Family Scholar House and some public parks that we wanted to do. So, none of that's easy. It all takes time. I think if you're a developer right now, everything takes even longer than it used to. You've got to have the kind of will to figure out how to run through the wall in order to get some of these things accomplished, which I think is what ultimately, if you want more impact development to happen, we got to figure out how to make it a little bit easier because there's only so many of us that will run through those walls. So.
Thank you. And I feel like the wall doesn't get any easier. Like you run through it one time, and when you run through it a second time, it's probably thicker than it was the first time. So kudos to you. I know that is no easy feat. Alexandra, I know you're working on a big impact projects. I'm sure you have some walls and hurdles. I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a big hurdle, and that's what Mariah was kind of just hinting at, is the lengthy process it takes to get these projects through. And specifically in Salt Lake, I think because development has started to kind of come out of nowhere in the last 5-ish years. The city has been kind of taking a step back and lengthening the permit process and making these projects actually more difficult to get approved. And I think it definitely, I know that it is coming from a place of trying to get this right, but at the same time, I've noticed that there are things, for example, that are slowing down our affordable projects, like exactly how the landscaping looks, or where where an electrical box is placed on site. And it's those things that are like, yes, that's it's important. We care obviously very much about what the ground plane looks like, and I can talk about that a little bit more later, but I think those are the kind of things that we need to make sure that we're all on the same page about. If we want to get this housing built, we need to make sure that we're actually working together to make it happen. Another thing that really kind of helps make these kinds of projects happen and really encourages more development is also choosing the right partners. So Catalyst, for example, is a partner of ours on almost all of our projects in Salt Lake. And we have the same impact oriented goals that really pushes us to get creative as far as financing and get creative as far as design of our projects to make sure that they are actually additive to the communities, and really getting the community involved as well is a big part of it for us.
Yeah, community engagement is one of the, I wouldn't call it an obstacle, but it's becoming more and more critical in projects, that the community is on board, that they feel invested in the project and part of the process. Kathy, maybe you want to speak about that as you're going into your 28th project impact.
Yeah,
I like bringing in the community. So if you've thoughts on that, we'd love to hear that.
we recently completed a project with Catalyst, social impact project up in the hilltop area of Tacoma, Washington. And for those of you who know that area, you know that not too many decades ago, that was an area of Tacoma that was very heavy in gangs and drugs. And it has since, the city has made great efforts to revitalize it. And so our project, which opened a little over a year ago, is the first new housing to come into that neighborhood in 50 years, and really was, pun intended, the catalyst to revitalizing that specific neighborhood. But the first thing that we did coming into that neighborhood was met with the community and had several meetings with the community, trying to understand what their needs were, what the history of the community was, so that we could honor it. And through that process, ended up with a project that was really sort of the Kickstarter of many projects that are now under construction in the Hilltop neighborhood of Tacoma. And through that process, ended up honoring the neighborhood with a mural that was placed on our building by a local artist. And probably for me, um, the most touching part of the story is we have a number of residents, it's 161 units, who lived in the neighborhood, and came back because it was safer and because they could afford to, and they were able to come back home, to quote one of our residents, and live where they grew up. And that I think for us at Co's, is a big part of why we do what we do. And then on the retail space, very intentional about the retail brought into that building via, again, communications and conversations with the community. They were in desperate need of financial services up on the hilltop. And so partner with a credit union that focuses on uh, basically banking the underserved, both on the deposit side and on the lending side. And I think being able to Alexandra's point, partner with investor groups that share that same mission and vision, and then working with the community to make it come to fruition has been really critical and important for us.